good evening, and good morning to those on the call.
Absolutely. It's going to be an exciting day. I feel it. I feel the energy. And I want to see if you guys like what we're saying, please, and show us what you're thinking about, what we're answering about. If you have questions, like we will put Elias in the hot seat today. So please ask your questions and we will get as much as we possibly can answered in here.
Yeah, one more, E. Yep. So any questions that we won't be able to get to because they're essentially off topic, we will tackle them after the live as well between the three of us. So please, we encourage you to ask all the questions you want and we'll address them as they come in.
Awesome. All right. Welcome guys to our first episode of the new series that Justin and I are hosting for the PM Career Growth Series. Thank you for welcoming us into your offices, your living rooms, wherever you are watching from. You have no idea how much it means to us that we get to help educate and provide value and answer all of your questions and really help you guys grow. I already see questions coming in here. Michael, we will be answering that question, I promise. But let me first introduce our amazing guests. So we have Elias Cobb today. He is the Director of Recruiting at QuantX. It's an IT consulting firm. He has over 20 years of experience. He's placed, I want to say like hundreds, if not like 500 PMs, thousands of candidates. He's leading a team of recruiters, and he is here to talk to us and give us all of the inside scoop on the job hunting and the resumes and how to present yourself. So before we even get started, I want to hand this off to Elias to let him introduce himself, and please also welcome him into your living rooms.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Thank you. Appreciate that. Nice to see everybody. And Michael, yeah, I did see that question. That's a great question. We'll definitely touch on that stuff. So like Elizabeth said, I've been recruiting for a long time. I'll probably cut it back to 15 plus years, but you can see the gray in my beard. And primarily in tech and tech related fields, but we've done a lot of placements in a lot of different fields. Healthcare, IT, consumer packaged goods. I can name some of the big clients: Kraft, Heinz, Trimble, DaVita, UC Health, lots and lots of companies, lots and lots of people, and lots of different kinds of roles. So there's many things that do translate across different skills. And as Elizabeth said, project managers have always been a big part of what we do. Placing consultants is a big part of what QuantX does. And obviously lots of project managers get hired as consultants. So just so you guys know, the aspect I come from, it's not only in how I review resumes and how I talk to people, but it's also feedback from hiring managers across a wide swath of those companies that I was mentioning. So lots of industries and lots of different types of people who hire project managers. So the feedback that I've compiled and have distilled down into the information that I give to job seekers, it's based on not just my own feelings, but the feedback I've actually gotten from hiring managers. So just a quick insight as to where this information comes from. I feel like that's always useful as well.
We're excited to have you, Elias. But before we get started, I was thinking for a second, some people might not be as familiar with the recruitment process as, let's say, those who have studied HR or been through all of the different stages on both sides of the aisle. Would you be willing to, in about 2 minutes, just give a brief synopsis about the recruitment cycle, and then we can lead right into the questions?
Sure. And it works the same, I think, for the most part, whether you're coming at it from an agency perspective, which is my perspective. So a staffing agency providing candidates to the ultimate client that would where the work's being done, or an internal corporate recruiter. We all approach it pretty much the same. So it always starts with a job requisition coming from the hiring manager, right? That's the beginning point. That job comes over to the recruiter. We then, based on our knowledge of what that hiring manager's preferences are, will distill this job description down to what we use to either post the position. And a lot of times it'll be posted as a full job description. Sometimes it'll be posted as a distilled down version with the actual top qualifications that are required. Those candidates that come in via applications are also put into a bucket along with candidates that the recruiter sources themselves. And that's using a variety of sources. I would say LinkedIn Recruiter is probably the number one job site right now. I'm going to probably guess Indeed is next. And then after that, it's a wide variety of sites. Monster and Career Builder, believe it or not, are still out there. Dice is still out there. ZipRecruiter, Smart Recruiter. There's so many after that. But I'm going to say LinkedIn, Recruiter, and Indeed are probably the top places. So these candidates get then put into a applicant tracking system, which that's a whole nother topic. I know people have a lot of feelings
questions on that.
about ATSs, and we can talk about that later if we need to. But within that system, or even some recruiters, and I do this, will just reach out to people as they source them, even before they're put in the ATS. Initial reach out, candidates schedule a time, recruiters do an interview based on the hiring manager's preferences and what we know fits. The recruiter generally makes a decision. Does the candidate get passed on to the hiring manager? The hiring manager then looks at the resume, decides, do I want to interview? Schedules an interview. Generally, the recruiter is the go-between as far as interview scheduling, and that's true for corporate or agency recruiters. However many interviews happen, right? It could be 1, it could be 7. I don't know. Companies do all different types of things. At that point, if an offer is going to be made, hiring manager makes a decision. The offer is generally then transmitted to the recruiter, again, to then make that offer to the candidate. If it's accepted, start date scheduled. So that's it in a nutshell.
Awesome.
That's great. So
close to
if I
2
wanted
minutes,
to distill it down. No, you did great. I just want to distill it down for a second for my own understanding. So job rec, and then a summarized top qualifications followed by sourcing, and then an application tracker and some initial screening followed by the full screening, leading to decisions with the hiring manager, and then into the full front interviews, then the offer determination, and then an offer decision, and then the offer is extended.
More or less.
Okay, perfect. So I wanted to actually start the conversation on the job requisition in general. And this is a pretty controversial question, which is, do you have qualifications or rubric or maybe criteria that's not written in the job description from a hiring manager that's passed on to a recruiter? For example, coming from a certain school, can't work at a certain employer. Is there a certain pedigree that has to be assessed?
That's a really good question. I'm going to say probably in my experience, I haven't had that a lot, honestly, to be totally honest. I don't think in my 20 plus years, I've ever had a manager say, I would like to see someone from XYZ school, or I don't want to see people who didn't go to a XYZ school. I don't think I've ever seen that. I definitely have seen people say they would like people from a certain type of company, but not a specific company. But I would attribute that more to industry experience. And that's another topic that we probably should talk about at some point here, because it is really relevant, especially in the current job market climate. That industry experience is definitely something that should be covered. But yeah, it's pretty rare that there's something that different. There certainly will be things like, say, industry experience that a manager might say to us, yeah, I'd really love somebody from this industry. But honestly, that's usually in the rec, right? That's usually in the preferred section. Well, it's a good question, and it could happen. I could see it happening, but I haven't experienced it that much.
I'd love to actually dive into that for a second, just because we actually have a question in the comments on that. And I'm putting it up on the screen right now regarding the requirements that are highly transferable. So you get requests from specific industries, right? But
yeah,
if we at least take it from the lens of project or program management, I know you staff for others. Project and program management as a discipline has extremely transferable skills. Mm-hmm. So are you able to sometimes bend that hiring manager's kind of choice or thought process on that ever? Or is it really, no, we're stuck in, if you knew it in tech or versus, healthcare, life sciences or things like that? Are you able to ever bend that with a hiring manager and just be able to display that the skills are transferable? Or are you pretty much stuck? This is the industry they want. They're not going to look at other candidates.
So The answer is it depends, right? It's unfortunate. Some of it is going to always be dependent on who the hiring manager is, right? And if they've
Right.
had success hiring people outside of an industry, they're outside of their industry, they'll probably be willing to do it again. If they've struggled with that and really only people or mostly people they hired from their industry have been most successful, they're going to be less likely to do that. Here's the trick right now, and this goes to job seeking, in being intentional in your job seeking and where you want to put your most effort. Industry is always a plus. In every job that I've almost ever worked on, whether it's tech, PM, tech support, credit and collections, accounting and finance, sales, industry is always a plus. We don't need it, but we'd love someone from this. We'd love someone from that. What happens when the market is like it is now, and they really feel like, whether it's true or not in their particular discipline, they feel like there's a lot of candidates on the market. Those pluses just float right up into the requirements section. And it's not even that it's intentional, but this is what I think happens with a lot of these. The recruiter gets the rag, right? Industry is a plus because it always is. So you get lots of applicants, or you go and do a search and you have lots of results in your queue. What's a good way to narrow that down? Let me start with all the people from healthcare, since we're a healthcare company, let's say.
Right.
Let me use healthcare to narrow the list down, and I can probably find 5 to 7 well-qualified candidates who also happen to be from the desired industry because of the nature of the market. So I think it's more difficult right now to get a manager to look outside that, but not because the manager doesn't want to. Some of them don't, but it's also because the person recruiting for the position, the person reviewing resumes, is going to have a lot of choices from that industry. And that's just going to float them above. And that's who is going to get put in front of the hiring manager more often than not.
So I think that there's an important piece that's being highlighted here, which is it a fair statement to say that recruiters are inundated with too many applications, and so they're trying to create additional layers of filtration to get to more qualified candidates?
And I think Thomas touched on that in the chat right now, like the filters that you use to get through. Yeah. So the answer to that is yes, there are lots of applicants. I will still maintain, and I think if you read recruiter posts on LinkedIn or anywhere, I think most people will agree, the majority of applicants are not qualified for the jobs.
Okay. Yeah.
They're being thrown in there by AI tools on the job seeking side, and we can talk about that later. But there's a lot of applicants who are not qualified. So yes, we get inundated with a lot of candidates. Elizabeth, I was going to touch on the techniques, but did you have something?
No. Go ahead. I'll ask my question in a minute. I don't want to interrupt your thought process.
So Thomas' question was, what techniques do we have to filter through all these? So really what a lot of it comes down to is looking at location is big, right? Where is the candidate located? A lot of jobs are hybrid or on site, or can only employ in certain states, which is an HR setup. It's nothing usually nefarious. It's usually we're not set up. Company A isn't set up to employ people in these states. So that's one big thing we use to narrow people down really fast. Where are you located? And then the second thing, and this is something again that we could talk more about later. Recruiters look at titles. The first thing recruiters look at is they do a quick scan of titles, whether it's a resume or whether it's a profile that we're going through in a list of search results.
Okay, I got to stop you there. I'm like, wait a second, because this is something when I write people's resumes too. There are some companies and industries that use standard titles. There are also others that don't. So if someone's like writing their resume, then are they going to have to put, here was my title, and then in parentheses acting as another title? How does that get handled? Because not every company follows the same title. And if they're looking at titles first,
correct,
that's going to, now all these people saying, I'm so qualified, and it's like, I'm doing that job. Like, I can feel that frustration right now for everyone who's listening to this. So how does that get handled?
Yeah, this is one of my big recommendations I make to people is functionalize your titles. If you don't have an industry standard title, give yourself one. And you can put in parentheses your real title if you don't feel like just changing it. There's nothing illegal or immoral or unethical about giving yourself a functional title. That's something you actually did.
Okay.
Don't put it on if you didn't do it. But I use the example of your title's Software Systems Analyst 4, but you're a project manager, right? Nobody outside of your company knows what a Software Systems Analyst 4 is. And here's the challenge right now. Maybe your bullet points, maybe everything looks great from a project management perspective, but your title isn't. So and by the way, personally, I train all my recruiters to not go off titles. Titles are terrible.
Okay.
But I've hired and trained enough recruiters to know that's the default thing that happens anyway. So if I have a pile of resumes and I've got, let's say the first two, number one resume says Software Systems Analyst 4, number two resume says Project Manager. If I'm recruiting for a project manager job, which one am I probably going to look at first? Think of your titles, and I'm stealing my friend Tony Lee's synopsis here. Think of your titles as the newspaper headlines.
Yeah.
If the headline isn't attention grabbing, nobody's reading the article.
So let me ask you this, and then I want to move to the summarizing the top qualifications because we have to move forward.
Hang on.
Oh, yeah.
Before we even get there, I think it's important. There are two questions. One that keeps burning inside
It might be the
chat.
same one as mine. Let's see.
So
Go ahead.
AI being used for screening. And this is going to be a two-part question first. I'm going to do it in reverse because of the importance of AI in the emotions in the chat right now, which is AI screening effectively towards the project managers or just screening in general? And what are the top qualifications in this current marketplace to be competitive?
Okay, that's a great question. It does fit into what we were just talking about with titles. And I do want to make one other quick point. The other thing that people don't realize, and how would you unless you've been a recruiter, on LinkedIn, in LinkedIn Recruiter, on Indeed, Dice, wherever, if I do a search and I have a list of profiles, all I see are your last couple titles and companies.
Oh, wow.
So I'm searching all of your keywords. I'm searching everything that's in your resume or in your profile. But all that's presented to me by the job board is, and I'll use LinkedIn, but it's very similar. I see your picture and your tagline, and I see your last three job titles and companies, and that's it.
Wow. Okay.
But the same thing on Indeed. On Indeed, I really see two. I see your name, location, and two titles.
Wow.
So from that data, the recruiter has to decide, do I want to even look at this profile? If I've got 78 profiles in my search results, I have to decide from the titles. And I don't even like titles, but that's what I'm given. That's what I'm given. And if I have enough results, let's say I'm looking for a PM, and again, LinkedIn's 25 results on the first page.
Yeah.
We'll use that same example. If I've got someone whose last three titles are all project manager, all program manager, and then I've got Elizabeth with Software Systems Analyst 4.
Yeah.
Whose profile am I going to look at first? And if I get to 5 or 6 that look pretty good, I may never even look at that other resume that didn't have the titles. Again, that's all that's presented to us on the back end.
So that's an AI filter as well, where it's just, it's not necessarily AI, but it's
what the job board presents.
It's categorizing it. So for people that don't know, LinkedIn, and I would assume Indeed, and you can answer that, everything is based off of SEO. They search by relevance. So it's getting pulled up, but you're only getting to see a little bit. So I'll let you go back to Justin.
And then I have to click into it to say, I want to see the details.
Okay.
Here's the other thing that people don't realize man, I think it's just about every platform. The first search field, the first filter that can be used is job title.
Okay.
So I don't use it a lot of the times because I don't like titles personally. I've been doing this long enough that I know that. But again, think about all the recruiters out there and think about all the ways they recruit. And I'm not going to say I never use title. It's an effective, and again, there's nothing illegal or unethical or moral about me saying, I'm just going to start with people who use project managers or title. I'm probably going to get a pretty good group of results. But it's the first choice that we have. If I showed you LinkedIn Recruiter, the top filter in the whole page is job title. It indeed does start with location, actually. And then you get down to the fields where you could type in keywords. Title, right there.
Yeah.
Do we get in trouble though? And Kyle just asked this too. And it was my question before we jumped into the IA questions. Just titles are so important, but if you get a job, you're likely getting a background check. Is there going to be an issue if you only put the title of kind of what you did, but not your official title, or do you have to put both or just one?
So in my experience, most companies don't do a title verification. They just do a background check.
Yeah, whether you work there or not. Yeah.
But even the companies that do an employment verification, a lot of times that isn't even title anyway. But even if it is, you generally are going to fill out an official application to get to that point, right? Okay. In your application, you put your real title, but that wasn't in your resume. Chances are the hiring manager is never going to see that application because they don't see it. They just see the resume that was sent over. And let's be honest, if you had project manager and you were a project manager and your real title was software systems analyst 4, is the manager going to throw a fit after they interviewed you, vetted your skills, and really liked you, and they knew you did project manager work? Even if they asked, you just say, that title's meaningless. I put one that was functionally what I did and relevant to the job I was targeting. So those education verifications, also employment verifications, they don't even get sent to the hiring manager. They're done by
that's a good point. It's all HR. Yeah.
So in that system, resume trumps the application system itself.
Usually, in my experience, a lot of times the official application that you fill out and sign is done after you're already into the interview process.
Okay.
Now, if you're worried about it, and some people are, like, and Kyle has the question there, you could put program director / head of technology, or like you said, Elizabeth, in parentheses, head of technology. I think that's a fine way to do it. I've seen lots of people do that. And as long as, using the example we were doing, you have project manager in your title, then if somebody searches for project manager in the title field, it'll come up. Okay. And this fits into what you were asking, Justin, AI. So on the screening side, AI is being used. There are lots of bolt-on applications. Most ATSs, some of the big ones do, but a lot of them don't have any AI component. But companies will purchase a separate subscription to these. There's tons of them out there being built.
So plugins.
Resumes. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And title is one of the fields that is weighted. And I know this because I've demoed a couple of them, and I even started trying to build my own GPT just because I wanted to see what it looked like and how it worked. And it spit back. I got to a certain point and it spit back, here's the criteria. Give me your weighting, how much you want to weight each of these things. Title was the first one that ChatGPT offered to me as an option. And the default option was a weighting of 30 out of 100.
Okay. Wow. The takeaway here, because people are wondering about the ChatGPT, they're wondering about AI, and they're wondering about the screening and filtering for ATS. As a top, when we are thinking, sorry, I liked Michael's answer at the spring break. So the top thing, like the top criteria, when we're starting to summarize the top qualifications, which we're going to look at in a second of how you figure out what's the most important, but from a weighting criteria, we should be looking, when people are applying for jobs, they should probably focus first on the job title, but what would be maybe the next two? I don't know if we have time for the top 5, so let's go with the top 3 things, or maybe explain the top 3 and just you can list top 5 outside of, so addition to the title, if people are optimizing their resume because they're getting filtered out of ATS and everything's going through ChatGPT these days, right? What are those top ones besides from title that they should focus on as a priority to make sure it really aligns with the role?
Yeah, so there's a couple of those. Obviously, title's big because it cuts across all industries, it cuts across all jobs, and it cuts across, from what I can tell, most of the AI tools as well, and just fits into what recruiters tend to do. And I'm going to come at this a little differently. I think if I was job seeking, the way I would focus my job search, the jobs I would try to go after are the ones in the industry I was in, are the ones where, a lot of people have PMPs. PMP is almost a requirement for most project manager jobs now.
Dang it.
It's not it's not required everywhere, but it's one of those things that, again, somebody could easily say, shoot, I'm just going to start with everyone who has a PMP. Why not?
Yeah.
It's an easy filter. It's something you can type right into an ATS search if you want to, and you can certainly code certifications as a weight.
Certifications, got it.
Yeah. As far as how AI reviews resumes, the short answer is I don't know, and nobody knows because they're all different. They're all trained based on that recruiter's or that company's input. So you could weight title 90% if you wanted to. You could weight it 10%, whatever,
Right.
however you wanted to do it. But then you can also create all other kinds of criteria, industries, certifications, tenure at jobs. I only want to see people who worked at their last 3 jobs for more than 5 years each. I think it's stupid, but you can do it. And the thing is, you'll never know when you apply to a job what criteria that AI is using to review your resume. The nice thing, the positive about AI is it's not just keyword driven, right? It's more pattern driven.
Okay.
Remember, AI is not actually intelligent. It's not it's not general intelligence yet. They're not all it's doing is looking for patterns and matching them to what it's been told is the way a resume should read or should look, or this is what I'm looking for. So it's just looking for those patterns. So ideally, it's not going to be just keywords. So I think if we go to what I would look for in a resume and what managers seem to look for, which is, I would hope that would flow down into this training. Biggest mistake I think people make in project management specifically, since that's what we're talking about, is not telling me what the project was doing. That is the biggest mistake that I see. And it honestly, a lot of times it drives me nuts. And I probably know where Elizabeth is going. It doesn't matter, right? Because you can manage. I don't know if I'm right, but that's
No, he's getting at me because so his resume right now, Justin's resume is, and this is a question we've gotten, is broken out by projects. And I'm like, I don't want that. I put it into, I want to break it out by roles for the most part, unless you've only been projects contracts where you're there for one thing. I do say what type of project it was. I'm running tech projects, building web apps, mobile, whatever, but I don't have my resume broken out by projects because it starts becoming disjointed. And I think that's what he was ahhing at me for.
Okay, well,
That
I
is
can talk
correct.
to that too. This is real quick. Functional resumes, people hate them. Don't do it.
I don't have a functional, do I?
Where it's all projects, and then at the very bottom it's like work experience, and you get one line for each company with the dates. Don't do that. Everybody hates it. The assumption that people jump to is you haven't actually done this job, so you're trying to pull out experience that is relevant. And if I actually dig into this, you won't have actually done much of this. And every time I've even tried to use a functional resume, invariably the hiring manager requests a chronological one. So my recommendation is to go with a chronological resume. But the type of project thing that I'm talking about, I get so many PM resumes, applications, and in sourcing where you have great descriptions of project management duties, like what you did, but I don't know what it accomplished. Was it a piece of software you were building? Were you implementing something? Was it a data center build? I have no idea what kind of project it was. And again, I'm probably going to start to focus more on the resumes that do tell me what they did, because it's relevant to the job that I'm recruiting for, right? I'm going to look for people who've managed similar projects, ideally.
Can you give an example of that? And then I want to move on just because we've got some questions in the chat, and then I want to get to the other phases of the process.
Sure.
Yeah, but hang on. I got two things that I want. But
We should make the live 2 hours.
I'll answer this real quick. Software development projects, for example. And the reason is most companies, even though I know PM skills are very transferable, most managers aren't super interested in PMs who haven't managed that type of project before.
Yeah.
In terms of what
industry, it goes back to industry. It goes back to
yes, and this is actually better than industry because usually it's a broader swath and you can qualify. Yeah, but if I'm recruiting for a software development project manager, I don't want to submit someone who's only managed data center moves. and vice
Correct.
versa.
Yeah.
And if I look
Yeah.
at your resume and I'm not sure what it was because it's managed projects in excess of $30 million and so many matrix resources, delivered on time and under budget, blah, 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 blah. All these great objective measures, which are great to see, by the way, but doesn't actually say what they delivered.
Yeah. Okay.
If I
Correct.
can't find anyone else and it looks like you're at a software development company, maybe I'll reach out to you and then ask the questions. But if I can find other people or other people have applied who do have that data, I'm probably going to start with them.
Okay.
Okay. So it's still very shocking that title is one of the heaviest weighted items.
It's
And
always the
it's
thing.
starting to make sense because when we think about all of the bullets and explanations of your projects and all of that, they don't even get to that part. So
A lot of times they don't.
So there's the original question that I asked you, what is the top qualifications that the current marketplace is looking for project managers? And then I'll ask my last question before I hand it back to E.
So that's pretty much what we were just talking about. They're looking for someone who has managed the types of projects that they're running. That's what they're looking for, including size. And by size, I don't mean just the project size, which
Correct.
is absolutely something I get all the time. We only can hire people who have managed multiple projects at the same time and have managed 10 million plus or 30 million plus or whatever. Also,
Right.
size of the company can matter.
Yes.
A lot of companies feel like if you've only worked for startups, you will not
can't work on
a large
enterprise.
enterprise because you'll be frustrated by the red tape. And a lot of people
Exactly.
feel like if you've only worked in a large enterprise, you won't be nimble and flexible enough to work at a startup. I don't necessarily buy that all the time, but that doesn't mean that it's not what's out there. It's not what people are looking for and how they're reviewing resumes. And again, when the market is the way it is, and this goes to being intentional with how you apply for jobs and the jobs you go after, if there's lots of applicants or even the perception of them, that's what the manager is going to say is, hey, we're a big enterprise company. I want someone who's worked in a big enterprise and knows what it's like to work in a PMO and has managed software development projects. So those are the things that are right now I'm seeing as the biggest qualifications is that company size, project type, and then even, again, matching up project size and scope.
Okay.
Also, wait, let me jump in.
Perfect.
Sorry.
Yeah. One more.
No, good.
One other thing that really does differentiate a lot of people in project management, I found, is whether or not you've been fully budget responsible.
Oh.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing that a lot of people don't touch on their resume or LinkedIn and
Right.
is important in the cases where it's important. If the company's asking for that, then they want that. Lots of
Makes
companies
sense,
don't. It's
yeah.
not always required. But if you've done that as a PM, 100% make sure you talk about being hands-on managing the budget.
Awesome.
So Adam, yeah, and a few other people who are saying they're taking copious notes. I'm learning.
So am
a lot
I. We
here.
are too.
This is very informative. So I have one more question and then I'll hand it off, I promise, which is it has to do with this concept of Elias that people want to transfer into different industries. And I want to preface it with this statement. Is the reason that people are having difficulty going into an industry that they have no previous experience because they can't demonstrate and that it's a hiring risk for the current marketplace and there's already existing competitive people who have that experience, which means you'll never be looked at?
I'm going to say it's mostly just that last part. It's not so much that people can't demonstrate it or even would be viewed as a hiring risk. I think it's more that right now the climate is, if I'm a hiring manager, I think people feel like I can get lots of resumes, so I'm going to take people who have already been in this industry because they're less likely to fail. And the other part that you have to keep in mind is everybody's really scared to make a bad hire.
Exactly. It's costly.
It's costly. It's very costly. And so managers it's like almost analysis paralysis, right? They're like, I can't make a bad hire because it's going to kill me. And then I may not ever get to fill this job again because they got to take my position. And now I can't get my projects done. So they're really trying to that's why you see 7, 8 interviews too. They're trying to do everything they can, even though there's really no I don't think any evidence that works. But that's where that industry comes from, is right now they feel like, hey, I can get it. So why not?
So thank you for that. I want to move ahead. We've got some hot topics sitting in the chat right now. And so I want to come back to, because you said one of the things you first do is you summarize top qualifications. I want to figure out how you decide what that is, but I want to come back to that in a second, because you mentioned top qualifications, sourcing, full screening, and then we would get to the interview and the offer. Now we've touched on screening and how ATS is based on the filters at this point. We've touched on some AI. We touched on industries. So before we go into interview or offer, and that may end up being another live, right? I want to touch on a few other things. Some people you've answered how we stand out as well, and that comes from the filtering and what gets weighted the most. Some people have asked that the two hot topics I'm seeing right now in the chats right now, of course, because this is a project management audience, right, is first of all the PMP, even for a tech company, right? When it's like they're agile and yet they want PMP. So I want to tackle that first. And then I'll go into the other one I want to tackle. That's the big area, which is basically what if you're starting out, or how do you stand out outside of the ATS? Like, how do we avoid just applying into the void, basically? But let's start with PMP, because that people are now starting PMP groups, by the way, in our chat, which I actually think is awesome.
So the question is, should you get a PMP?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I did not answer the question So I know I was so excited about what's going on in the chat. So let me clarify. So PMP is being asked, as you mentioned, it's being put on everything. We know that there are some project managers and program managers who don't have PMPs, who are so stellar at their jobs. And we know that there are people who have PMPs that are not very good. And then some are, right? It doesn't matter. It's just certifications may only get you so far. Project management is a learned experience role. And then you have PMP being thrown on everything, even though they don't even use waterfall in the company, because tech is mainly Scrum or Safe or some form of Agile. Is there any way to tackle that? Or is everyone just going to have to start getting a PMP? People are asking, what do we do? PMP is thrown everywhere, and I don't have one. It's not relevant necessarily what I'm doing.
If you can afford to get one and you're a project manager, I would get one, whether it's relevant or not. There's certain fields, whether it's relevant to what you do or not, and there's certain fields that I make this recommendation. There's some certifications that don't really make much of a difference. PMP is not one of those. PMP has always been one that's worthwhile for project managers to have, because it's always a tiebreaker. It's always an easy filter. People feel like I can't go wrong by putting a PMP out there as one of my screening things. Why not? So the other ones that I'm big on telling people is Cisco, anything in networking, get Cisco certifications, and security, get a CISSP. Don't mess around, get a CISSP. The cloud ones I think are coming up, although lots of companies, I've worked plenty of cloud jobs where they don't care. But honestly, PMP is one of those that when people ask me, I'm like, I know if you're out of work and you can't afford it, I get it. But if you're able to, I would, just because it's so easy for a manager or a recruiter to just throw it on a project manager requirement, even if they have no idea if it's really required. Just throw it in there. Why not? It's going to be much easier, and I'll just use that to weed people out. And even if it's not required, recruiters, obviously everybody knows about a PMP, and if you got a long list of resumes or a big pile of them, why not?
That's how you filter.
You have a PMP. Why not?
Yep.
It's not going to hurt.
Okay. So unfortunately, guys, you heard that here. Depending on which field you're in, you're probably going to have to. So contracts, I think, is like lead or something, or construction is like lead, or architecture, whatever it is. So the relevant cert probably need that. All right. So we know certs. Now, while people sit depressed about that in the chat, let's move to the resume void.
Janet
I'm mourning myself.
She mentioned the agile certs.
Yeah.
Those are good to have too. Absolutely. Again, kind of tiebreakers, even if it's not a Scrum Master job, if you're going into an agile job and you have a CSM, looks good. Looks like, because you feel like you've demonstrated you understand that environment.
And the CSM is so much easier to get. Like CSM and Safe, I got SAFE. It was a 2-day thing, an online course or online test. I got my CSM in 2 days. PMP is a whole different level. I think Prashi or whichever the other change management one is a whole other level of a lot of investment. And yeah, but there's another one for change that I think is actually called change management something, but there's a lot there.
And then the PSM is a one-time cert. So professional scrum master. I think it's important that I want to ask this question because you brought it up and it's top of mind to me. It's a little deviation, but not too big, is the scrum masters who want to enter the project management space. Are you seeing that the scrum master role is slowly moving towards project management requirements? Because from my understanding, the scrum master role is like half of the project manager's original role.
It does feel like the Scrum Master as its own role has lost its luster and is fading out somewhat. I don't see that requirement very frequently anymore. It also could be a function of just where we are. When the market is like it is and companies are trying to save money for whatever reason, they might be trying to save money, they tend to combine roles, right? And say, you know what, let's get one person who can do this instead of, whereas in 2021, we might have hired two. And it's a natural thing to smush together, Scrum Master and Project Manager. So I think that might be some of what we're seeing, and it doesn't mean it won't shift back when the candidate market shifts, which hopefully it will. It always has. Hopefully that will shift back, and we'll start to see more pure Scrum Masters. But if you're a Scrum Master and you're trying to go after Project Manager jobs, I would call yourself Project Manager / Scrum Master. And make sure your bullet points, the first bullet points are project manager bullet points. And then maybe the last set of bullet points in your experience is about the scrum mastering. Again, the order of your
I've heard that
matters too, because again, what do you look at first? The title is the headline, and then you look at the bullet points. If they're not grabbing attention, and somebody I saw asked that early on, what do you look for in your first 6 to 8 seconds? I think maybe a little tongue in cheek with what recruiters say, oh, you only get 6 seconds on a resume. But that's what it is. They scan titles. Honestly, it's companies and dates of employment. People look at that. And then you quickly start hitting the first few bullet points. And if you don't grab some attention in that first 3, 4, 5 bullet points, you might be moving on to the next resume.
Okay, I'm gonna put this.
Hold on a second.
Go ahead.
So Elias, this is important because this is something I think McKinsey does, which is around MICE, mutually exclusive and completely exhaustive. And they lead with the most impactful, most important bullet points, and then they go down in terms of sequence. And that's just how the mind gravitates as well. So I think that's a good point. I want to move into resume writing, but I want to see if there's anything else that you're thinking first.
I'm going into that, and I want to time box us because we only have 14 minutes left, and I do want to answer the questions about putting things into the resume void, how to stand out. But I'm taking us into the resume writing and how we do that. And when I write resumes right now, because you've got the 8 to 6 seconds at most, I've got a role summary. I've got the first few bullets should be what you recognize as what you want the most when you look at a job description. Like if they really want leadership skills, that's got to be the first bullet points and so forth. But this is where Justin and I go ahead on something, and it's resume writing, and it ties to the 4 to 6. And I knew he was going to ask this. The summary. When I look at a summary, and I'm actually changing my tune on this. I normally I'm changing my tune on this. So a summary for me needs to be, it's your highlight reel, quantifiable achievements. What is your value and impact? Make it known immediately. In the past, I've had this be a paragraph. Justin has it be a bulleted list, and I'm now leaning more towards bulleted list because it's easier to scan. So when someone's writing a resume, Justin has something to add. That was my question, but I'll let him add his question so you can answer fully.
No, I just wanted to add my version so Elias has the comparison.
Yeah.
So in my version, Elias, I have the first bullet is years of experience and your functional and industry knowledge, followed by a second bullet that's around your expertise and your focus areas. The third bullet is a highlight from your entire resume that you want to highlight as your biggest achievement. And the last one is if you have any thought leadership that is pertainable, that you highlight that as well as either an author or some sort of publisher. And so that's the comparison.
So what goes in the summary and what is the format of the summary is the question, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I suspect you could ask 10 people and probably get 10 different answers.
Naturally.
I think my personal opinion is I think the very top tier summary should be pretty brief, maybe a sentence or two. When it runs into a paragraph, people stop reading. I think. I don't think they pay attention. If you're going to do more details, and I do what Justin was saying, bullet points are better. They're always better because if you put I've seen people who write their work experience as a paragraph, like grab your attention because you start to miss stuff. Bullets always work that way. Personally, this is again just my experience.
Sure.
With an objective or a summary, I've really only seen it hurt people when they forget to change it and they say they're targeting a different type of job.
Oh, yeah.
That hurts.
And they apply for it. Yeah. And I've actually had a manager say, this guy said he's looking for a director job. Why you submit him for a manager role? I'm like, does it really matter? So my opinion is that I wouldn't put too much work into the summary. What I would do, maybe a sentence or two if you really want it up there. I like what Justin, I think both of you are saying to include. I like an achievements section of your work experience where you list maybe two or three big achievements that you've made because they're right there on page 1 and grab somebody's attention. I do seeing the industry. I like seeing the thought leader. I like seeing that type of stuff, what your focus is. But I do think if it's at the top in a summary, it tends to get lost a little bit. I think a lot of people, they just jump right into the work experience. They glance at the skills. Again, if you have a selected achievement section, it's something that's going to grab your eyes. Oh, there's some bullet points there. I'm going to look at that. I think, again, I wouldn't kill yourself on the summary, I guess is what I'm saying. I would maybe try to put a few things in there, but really you want to make sure those things are represented elsewhere. You don't want to miss. You don't want to put anything in the summary that you don't have somewhere else because it might be missed. If you think it's a critical piece of data, have it somewhere else.
And that's why I have it a highlight reel where I tell people, I used to have a key achievement section, but what I struggled with sometimes was that, and so I don't really do it anymore, is that when people then in their section, like within the role of experience, they don't have the measurable impact anymore in there because they already used it. And I'm like, that's why I say, make it a highlight reel. If you've been across the board, at all your companies, you're achieving operational efficiency, then make the bullet point saying something about you, wherever you go, you are achieving operational efficiency between, let's say, 30 and 90%. So then you don't lose it from your bullet point. You add more detail.
Yeah. If you're able to do that, I think that's fine. But I also don't think it hurts if you say delivered $80 million project on time and under budget, right?
Correct.
Or saved X, and then you elaborate on it in the work experience where it happened.
Correct.
It's not going to, no one's going to get too upset if it's put in there twice, as long as you're not just cutting and pasting it. If you use the exact same verbiage, people will notice that. But you can talk about the same project and accomplishment in your work experience that you highlighted in the selective achievement.
So I want to tackle Michael Smolin's question, and EIC, you highlighted it as well, but I want to layer it for a second. So we already know that our previous notion, and this is how I built the summary before, which is basically to flag immediate fit for a recruiter and screening. 4 bullets immediately signal that. But what we're saying is now that titles are more weighted than that. So let's take this further and talk about resume formatting. Do you encourage bolding and selective bullets and any kind of other formatting to help highlight that? Or does it really matter if it's being screened by a bot?
Yeah, obviously if AI is looking at it, probably doesn't matter too much. But I don't love highlighting all over a resume or bolding. That's just a personal preference, I guess. I don't know if people care that much. I think I actually have had managers say, I don't like this bolding all over this resume. I've never had somebody say they like it. But it doesn't mean that it didn't draw their eye to certain things. So I personally, and I think this is what most people say, is your resume should be, the one you're sending should be pretty generic in terms of formatting. Like Times New Roman, 11 font, standard bullet points. Don't do tables. Don't do columns. Don't do weird stuff. Just like a basic format is really what you should probably focus on. Again, the things that we're talking about, the titles and making sure that your bullet points are directly attacking the job requirements, that's what's going to make the biggest splash when somebody looks at it. Somebody mentioned, and this is relevant. I'm going to go a little bit off. Somebody mentioned networking and referrals. Obviously everybody knows networking. They're the best way. If you can get introduced to somebody, get a referral, that's the best way. But the other thing I really recommend to people, again, being intentional, going after jobs where you're really well qualified. You're from the industry. You've done these type of projects. You've done this type of job. To the recruiter, write to the hiring manager, apply for the job, but then find their email address. Don't do it on LinkedIn. In-mails get blown up, filled up, ignored. Just ask ChatGPT, what's the email convention for XYZ Corp? It gets it right most of the time.
Nice.
And there's also plugins and stuff you can get, but I've tested it. I have a couple companies that use an underscore clients, and ChatGPT got them. But I would write to the recruiter, write to the hiring manager if you can figure out who it is, and this is where you use a cover letter. Say, hello, Mr. or Mrs. Recruiter, I applied for this job. Here's my resume again. I'm a really good fit because of bang, bullet points. Then talk about the things that are most important in that job that you can tell are the requirements that they want, and touch on your skills, how they fit it. Just a couple bullet points. And then do another paragraph. I'm super excited about this job because of bang. And pick out a few things that show you actually did marginal research on the company. Like you went to their website and you figured out that they're merging with somebody. They're releasing a new product. They're proud of their culture, whatever it is, something. Mention that on there and send that with your resume attached to whoever posted the job, the hiring manager, if you can find it. I know in a lot of cases you won't be able to figure it out, and that's fine. But in the cases where you can, I highly recommend it. And this is something that I've started a few networking groups over the last few years. This wasn't my idea. One of the guys in the group said, hey, I've been doing this. It works really well. I was like, okay, I'll recommend it to people. He went from like a 1% response rate to 4%, which 4% is not great, but it's orders of magnitude
4x.
Better than 1.
Yeah. Yes, right? It's 4x.
And he did find a job. And I would say do it. Don't do it for every job. And that's where like the spray and pray, it's not the best way to look for a job. You really do want to try to find jobs that you're really well qualified for. Don't worry about making the recruiter angry. It's what we do. If I get an email and it points out how you're a really good match for this job,
you're streamlining
you just made
work.
my job easier.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the important piece, though, that you're highlighting is it's not through LinkedIn, because that's where they'll get inundated all the time. You have to go out of your way to find a way to connect with them in the email. And I want to highlight this important piece, which people harp on networking, but don't network for the sake of a referral or just a job.
Correct.
Network for the idea of connecting with people so that when you do need something in the future, the networking pays off. You don't network after the fact and expect or are entitled to that concept.
100%.
Yep. Okay. Guys,
I have one more question. One quick
all right,
question.
you better rapid fire it. We're running low on time here.
Rapid fire. So Elias, I put in the bottom of the resume unrelated jobs that I've bundled together to help illustrate the longevity of experience instead of just leaving it off the resume. What do you think about that? In other words, I'm in project management, but I've done some sales management role work in the past, and I've bundled it together as sales management roles.
I think if it's more than 15 years ago, it's probably not even worth putting on there. You run into some ageism potential once you get to 20 plus years. Now people start to think you might be, God forbid, old. But also, it's not, once you're also 15 years back, how relevant is that experience anymore? But I think if it's 10 years back, or even if it's tangentially relevant to the jobs you're applying to, then it could be worthwhile to include on there in the way you're talking about. I saw another question earlier. 2 pages, you can go to 3. That's not a problem.
Really?
Really? That's new for all of us.
That's new?
Oh, no.
Wait, but with how much experience?
No, yeah. If you've got 5 years of experience, don't have
One
a
page.
three-page resume.
Oh, yeah.
You could probably get it on one page. If you have 20 years of experience
Yeah.
and you've worked for 8 different companies,
You can go to 3.
that might even be hard to fit onto 2.
Yeah, that's
And
a struggle.
The part that I tell people, if you're not comfortable with the 3 pages, if it chafes you, that's fine. But if you want the space, put your education and certifications on page 3.
Yeah.
That give yourself 2 full pages, because everyone will scroll to the end of your resume to see your degree and or certifications if you have them. Everybody knows they're either listed at the front or the back. So if you've got certifications, publications, volunteer work that you think is relevant, anything like that, put that all at the bottom on page 3. Why not? People will scroll to see it.
Okay.
Elias, we are at time. There are so many questions we didn't get to. Hopefully we can in the comments. I'm hoping that we can get you back here because everyone has said how valuable this is. We've learned so much today. Thank you for joining. This is an incredible session. We did not even get to everything. So if you guys want him back, I want to see all the hearts and likes and everything so we can convince him to come back and keep talking about this stuff. It was so incredible to have you here. Where can everyone find you?
Yeah, just LinkedIn. Look me up. And I believe my email address is in my About Me section on there, so I'm easy to find.
Awesome.
Just look at Elias Cobb, QuantX, or just, there's not too many Elias Cobbs out there, honestly. Look me up and throw in QuantX. You'll definitely find me.
This has been so incredible. Thank you so much. We've had such an engaging audience. The number has actually gone up after the top of the hour hit. We will get these questions answered in the comments. We will convince Elias to come back, but I can't thank you guys enough. Thank you for joining. Thank you for letting us enter your minds and your homes and your offices for an hour to just be fed with this insanely helpful, amazing information. Next week, we will see you. We have Noah McLeod on for PMOs. We also have booked some other people that we will start getting those events booked. This series is not ending, guys. We have got a lot. So if you thought this was valuable, we're just going to keep growing, and we're also going to get, we'll convince Elias.
Wait till you know.
Yeah.
This is going to be all valuable.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elias.
Yes, thank you, everybody. And please do send me a connection. I'm happy to try to help people out directly if I can.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Bye,
Cheers.
everyone.